Exactly 5:07 on January 7th, 2026. And this is the District of Columbia State Board of Education working session is now called to order. The working session is being streamed live on the State Board's YouTube page for members of the public to view. The roll will now be called to determine the presence of a quorum. Director Butler, and Happy New Year. Please call the roll.
Representative Chamberlain. Representative Jenkins. Representative Movendar.
Present.
Representative Wateree. Representative Best. Representative Chang.
Hello, hello.
Representative Colson.
Present.
Representative Goulet. Representative Henderson.
Present.
Representative Johnson Law. Representative Thompson.
Present.
Vice President Williams.
Present.
President Patterson.
Present.
Mr. President, you have a forum.
Thank you so much, Director. I will briefly share, and I apologize because I was having a lot of fun over the holiday season that you now have in your emails, the leadership report. I will also state at the outset that I got called away in the midst of the meeting, and so there will be some parts of it that Vice President Wood can chime in and give a little bit more specifics if there are questions. But they are in your emails, and I will go over them very quickly. The subject matters. We only have one meeting, so let me state that from the outset. We only had one meeting in the month of December with OSSI. We did not have a meeting with DME nor Chairman Mendelson. So those meetings did not happen at all. People were busy getting ready for the holiday season, a lot going on. So the only one who met with us and kept their promise to us was OSSI. That being said, I'll go over some of the subject matters that did come up during the course of that meeting. All right. The areas that were mostly discussed were community schools, high school graduation requirement task force, attendance data, special education training, professional development for general education teachers. In the area of community schools, we have robust, and these numbers are inside your email, the leadership report. We've had a great conversation about community schools. And this comes on the back of basically, us having testimonies and everything. The meeting actually occurred on the 22nd, so that people understand most people were gone. I do want to thank Haley for stepping in for our director and deputy director, and she did an amazing job. I want to state that first and foremost. But in staffing us, what we talked about in community schools was basically, we just had some specific questions around which schools, how much money is in there to be funded, was 2.4 million. We talked about which schools are which ones are grantees, that there are 17 schools altogether. And she also provided the list of schools that actually have been grants, which is in your email in the report. She also stated that the grants run in 3-year cohorts. So I know during the time that I was talking about community schools, at the hearing in front of Middleton, and we were discussing this, and I thank Representative Thompson for being there with me to kind of talk us through this. But we were talking about how they run in three-year cohorts, and there's 17 schools that, some of the questions that arose during Middleton's question was, are there other people that can apply, everything, and that's why we asked the question about how does that happen? That it's not a yearly thing, but they're actually 3 years, and there's 2 that are going on presently. We also stated from the notes, we asked for the ratio between charters and traditional schools. We also know that some of the schools, there was a letter that from the federal government, some of the schools did not get funded, and Vice President Williams asked the question where any of our schools are getting on the chopping block for any budgeting processes. So not that we know of, and that was basically just our conversation on community schools. We then moved to high school graduation requirement category, and we basically brought up this subject because we wanted to know, did they have any other, opinions are, did they have any questions for us? And basically, they didn't really have any new questions for us or any concerns. Superintendent stated that she did attend one of the meetings and that she felt it went very well. She appreciated how well they're going. She said that, the one that she did attend, that, she had a few questions, but overall, she appreciated the questions that were asked, about it. So there was really no further question on that. Then we went into, attendance data. What I've given you in the report, our low watt from Haley's, from her notes, actually the questions that were given and everything. But if Vice President Williams wants to speak to it a little bit more about attendance data, please, feel free to just ask when you back to over. I will take that.
Yeah, I would just say, there's no big updates here. The reminder for everyone is that like OSSI plans to release attendance data for this coming school year in February. And I had referenced it, to them in advance, but then I followed up with them, during the meeting about just individual school level data earlier than that. But I've since kind of walked that back. I'll just wait till February because I know that attendance has been a concern in many parts of our city, but particularly with the federal law enforcement surge in DC. It's been something that's been coming across to a lot of my schools in Ward 1. And they said they could be able to break down individual school-based data when the report comes out in February for us to see how to support schools with ensuring students are getting to school.
And also, I believe after my departure, you guys also spoke about special education training, and professional development.
Yeah,
Just a little bit.
no, of course. So we have the notes here, but the main takeaway there is, Dr. Johnson Law, had been working with the Educator Excellence Committee to kind of look at how to support general educators, to serve all students, and make sure they're trained in serving students, with special needs. And we wanted to kind of take stock as to what OSSI does and what OSSI offers to support that training. The main thing here is in, I believe it might be like the second bullet point, second sub bullet, in which OSSI offers a medical credential. Teachers and schools can opt into that. And what that means is there are 4 courses that each are about 8 to 10 hours. And teachers can then get approved to, as having additional skills for serving students with special needs. It's not something that's required by any means. And I was curious about, how many schools have participated, but as a full city, only 48 educators across the city have taken advantage of that. So still pretty low, with regards to, that piece. You might have a question.
Yeah, I guess, so is there any incentive for having the micro credential?
It didn't seem that there was a particular incentive. Yep, other than have the credential and, Dr. Mitchell said she would be open to how to kind of market it and refresh that idea to schools at different parts of the school year. But that's where we stand right now.
All right. So that is the gist of our meeting, our one meeting, the other month, we sent out meeting. I think there's been some questions, but are there any further questions on any of the subject matter that we could get report? So again, and closing, what I would like to state in one of the questions is that if I appreciate your staff, I'm glad that actually that Haley had the opportunity to staff us and that our director and deputy director actually do some use of the time and get away and start their holiday season in good fashion. I know they work very hard for us, so I'm very happy when they told me that we're leaving and we're gonna go do some things like that. I hope the rest of everybody took the time, while they're being festive and enjoying their families, that they also got some rest. What I will say is that this is about to be a very, very busy season. Now that we're back in 2026, we know and watching news and everything like that, the political season is on and it's going to be very, very contentious. But we want to make sure that we're focused on doing the things that we need to do for our students, for our families, and just as long as in the midst of all the things that are about to happen. Thank you guys, and over to 2026. With that, we now will turn to our director, I hope she's doing what I said, for her report.
Good afternoon, members. So the brief report is there is no report, there have been no substantive changes. Our agency was closed for the last 2 weeks of the month. And so that got you with their families and take some time to decompress. The only thing I would say is that in your inboxes are the promised signups for the one-on-ones with the executive director. I just encourage you to please take me up on that. If you have any questions or if there's some time slots that fit your availability, so please let me know.
All right. Well, thank you. You allowed non report. But thank you. And again, I'm glad that we had some time, that staff had some downtime during the holiday season. The next item on our agenda is to debrief the December public meeting panel, which was on the topic of building policy for AI in DC schools. This is our time to debrief, discuss, and decide on any concrete next steps. Members, you have in your materials a summary document with key highlights from the panel. Are there any action steps we want to take as a board based on the panel discussion? They're now open. And I'm looking to Representative Best because this was a subject matter and for those who want to view in public or all of that, Representative Best, if there's things to the back. That's all right.
I thought that panel was well, really good to hear some of the information that we did here. I know that I had some resolutions that we were waiting to push. So after the panel, so I'm gonna represent those to the committee to determine if there needs to be any edits to them before we try to take it out of committee and send it to the board. So I think that would be my next steps.
Yeah, I'd just say, like, our committee's ready to, like, we wanted to get this input from a panel and kind of help present it more broadly as well, but I think I was encouraged by what we learned. I think it gives us good impetus to keep going. We'll look and see if tweak anything.
I just truly appreciate friendship, the gentleman who was strong friendship, because I did have the opportunity to go over there and do the doing to actually see what AI is doing in our schools and how teachers are handling it. I just encourage us to continue to, as we talk about the policy, that we're looking at how we're going to implement. I think they provided a great opportunity for us to see how things are being implemented. So I appreciate that. You also, the things that were said, because I got to actually witness how they're using it in school. Please. Any other comments?
Yeah, I do, but I appreciate your leadership on this, and I'm glad that we did the panel. I learned a lot. I think this is a complex transition that we're like just grappling with as a society. And so I don't necessarily feel the need to kind of dig into all the specific areas now, because I know the committee is like working on it, but I do look forward to kind of like just weighing in and giving feedback from like a school practitioner lens, as well as like the city data pieces that we need in order to like ensure that we are moving forward with training teachers, training students on like proper uses and effective uses for AI. So I'm encouraged by this, and I think we should continue to encourage, and collaborate with OSSI on how we move forward with this as a city.
Well, thank you. Were there any other discussion points anyone wanted to bring in? All right, thank you guys again. Thank you for the panel again. As Vice President Williams said, Representative Best, thank you for your leadership and pushing us in that area. We know that this thing is moving very fast. And we have to, see what district schools are going to look like as they address the issue of AI. So thank you for your leadership on that. As a reminder, the January public meeting panel will focus on effective community schools. We'll now move our public meeting public discussion at last month's working session. We voted on community schools for January and recent graduates for February. We will now discuss March. This particular point. We need to pick a topic for March. Do we have any suggestions? We didn't have anything in the out track, so we're open.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, I'm gonna discuss this in a little more depth in new business, but the issue that's come to my attention. You know, in greater detail recently, I've been able to talk to parents on the LSAT is the issue of. Trying to balance the new English language arts curriculum that they have, which is heavily focused on testing issues. And, you know, versus taking novels out of that curriculum. I've had parents that expressed a lot of concerns, and their biggest concern is not just content, but process on this. The fact that a major change is being made to curriculum without a process to engage the outset. I would like to see a greater engagement with our board as well on this before things like this are done. And just trying to strike the right balance. I think it's important to develop good test taking skills, but at the same time, we want to prepare our students to be able to succeed in the college or career after high school. And we've got to try to figure out how we strike that balance. And I've received a lot of concerns about this. There's been media coverage of it. And I think it's really right to kind of evaluate where we are with that balance right now through feedback from experts. And, you know, and not just this school community, but it's other school communities. And I'm gonna try to obtain a list of all the school communities that are using this new curriculum and see if they've had a similar reaction to it. So I'd like to put that out there. I don't know what the name for that panel would be, but I'm sure our capable staff will come up with something good to call it, but it would be, I want it to be larger than just the English language arts issue and deal and look at the issue of balancing testing, you know, with the desire for lifelong learning skills.
Thank you. I will entertain more and we'll come back to that. If you did, so opposed to just saying what you would like to put on the agenda, you kind of explained it for us as well, so we'll come back to it. I appreciate
Jumped
that
ahead,
aspect
sorry.
of it. But are there other items that we would like to consider for our March panel?
Go for it.
I think might actually be a good time to March, maybe April. To talk about like what we heard about, and possible changes to the high school graduation requirements. I mean, at a certain point, maybe that's not part of English. I think the desire has always been for this to be an iterative process, and different touch points. I would imagine that as we get into March, and maybe the answer is April, so I'm flexible with that. We should be starting to lift up some of the things we're hearing as solutions, release, that are different than what was proposed to us. And so it would just be dependent on changes to the high graduation requirements. Anybody from experts, but also to encourage the public. Continue to share with us.
We're going to share their thoughts. Okay. Others, I have two so far for March and possibly April. Are there others? I'm seeing one part that responded. There's something from you, Dr. Fleck.
I'm just smiling at her.
At our student representatives, is there something from our student representatives? I want to give you guys an opportunity as well. Vice President Lee.
Yeah, I don't, I'm not making a particular suggestion, but just want us to kind of be mindful this year potentially being a new or different budget cycle. And the broader narratives of constraints that are kind of being hampered in the city as to whether or not we want people to really kind of testify about what would be most effective for how we spend money in the education budget and what we fund. So that might be even be fine for April. I'm not saying it needs to be a March thing, so I'm not making any particular suggestions. I'm just kind of throwing it out there for members and others' awareness. Because I am concerned about the talk about a variety of cuts. But yeah, I think that there are in attending many of the high school graduation task force meetings. I think there is a lot of nuance and a lot of complexity behind each proposed change within the high school graduation requirement. So I think the more time we can spend as a board really hearing from people is something that is useful for making sure we make the right decision.
Thank you. We have three now. Is there a fourth? All right. What we'll now do is hear from each person. But also if they want to elaborate on their suggestions, and we'll start with you. Then we'll lay again, if you want to restate or just talk a little bit more about what you're proposing. What are you looking forward to getting out of this panel, you know?
Well, I think, you know, clearly, I think this is something that we need to have fixed before, or at least we put our best foot forward to try to fix before the next school year. I think the biggest thing that's missing to me in this is the collaboration with the school communities, the LSAT. I think that needs to happen before the next school year. If there's going to be an expansion of this curriculum, I'm not sure whether they're going to scrap it altogether, given the reaction they've got to it. But if any change like this is made, there should be greater outreach. I mean, even if DCPS has the power to make the change, they should involve the school communities in that change to discuss it ahead of time. Parents in this case found out after they learned that none of the novels were going to be presented that traditionally are in eighth grade. So that's certainly a huge concern. But, you know, I want to learn a little bit more about kind of what the timeline looks like, you know, with the work you're doing with OSSI, because if that's time sensitive, you know, I would be willing to yield to April, because I know that's something that we're on a timeline for. So I would turn to the two co-chairs of the task force. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that. And because what I would love to be able to do with this, the end goal, which I guess I could talk about during your business too, is to try to get a letter out to see if we can get at least a novel back in the curriculum this year. That wouldn't necessarily require a panel, but I think the larger thought process on what the right balance is between teaching to test taking skills versus teaching to, you know, college, career, and life readiness skills is a much broader discussion to have. So we could have that in April to get the letter out sooner. So I don't want to, you know, put you on the spot. I do want to note that the budget submission resolution date is April 1. So that's the date the mayor will submit the budget. I don't know if that affects your thinking one way or the other on that.
Okay.
Which, I mean, I don't want to use April Fool's Day as a, you know, that is April 1.
They'll submit the budget. April.
I appreciate that, Representative Boulay. I want to go over to Representative Thompson to talk about the high school graduation, kind of like an update. And if you could, for me, Representative Thompson, as he was talking about what that panel kind of would look like, and see if those might join or whatever. So I have.
So I don't know what the opportunity would be to join them. I would say that, I was, a bit thinking out loud and, because in the Henderson, I don't know what negotiation for your text, but, I don't know if we are discussing March and April now, just March. I think that, April might be better for us. That being said, do you have opinions on the, opinions and questions, on this as a panel topic? I have, learned a few things about, curriculum, just diving into one of the testimonies that happened, for us, being one of the teachers, and to maybe broaden, maybe give some shape, and maybe it's something that needs to be, I should start in our committee, I don't know, but, DCPS does not, actually has several ELA curriculums, for schools to choose from. It's not, one curriculum. I do think that's something we should be familiar with, because every curriculum should be standards aligned. And we deal in standards, but also like what the execution of standards look like, and maybe where there are places where we need to sharpen the standards, or and so maybe it is a broader conversation about standards, like that particular set of standards, and what curriculums are standards aligned, and what we would like to see that look like for children. Maybe something about, you know, I think part of it is testing, and not everything is about testing.
Yeah.
And that's not to, it seems, because let me back up. Everybody takes the same state assessment. Then you have different, also contractors and other interim assessments, that DCPS has. And you also have, the LEAs that are not DCPS, who also have curriculums that they are adopting, ideally should be standards upon. And I would imagine that there are certain things we want for all children, even if there is variation in curriculum. When you think about like, okay, should they be reading novels? Should they be having certain experiences? And so I hear what you're saying. I don't have a full thought. I'm just also putting things on the table, which could complement this idea. And I'm imagining there's a little bit more, research and learning that we need to do, because I know when the teacher came to testify from Kimball, and I asked some questions both to the school leader, but also to some folks from OSSI, I learned a little bit more about the differences in curriculum. And so even though, and some of the mandates from DCPS, which also might not apply across schools. So that would be my 2 cents, spend it as you will, but
May I respond to the 2 cents? So I agree with that completely. I do think, you know, with the curriculum that we set, I think the way and the standards, instead of standards we set, I feel like the schools were given the opportunity to opt into this pilot curriculum, and they chose to. So it wasn't, this wasn't forced upon them, from what I understand. Some of them opted and others didn't. But I think the way I'm understanding it is we set the standards. There's multiple curriculums that schools can choose from that all have to meet those standards, but they can differ in terms of how they meet those standards. I think what I've heard from parents on this is that, you know, in an age where, you know, social media and news is getting shortened into smaller and smaller bits, like the idea that we are then testing towards that, like and I've, you know, done a little bit of research in this curriculum, maybe not as much as you have yet. But the way it presents itself is very much geared towards being able to read shorter works quickly. And that reflect very much the strategy you would use in testing. And I mean, some of the parents at deal are like, we're more concerned about our students being able to read longer works and succeeding in college and career than bumping up test scores in the short term. So I think that's an interplay with it, but I think that broader discussion you're bringing is very valuable as well. So I think I would love to be able to work with you and the committee. What I was going to suggest later when we got to new business and brought this topic up was that if you refer to committee, and that I could partner with you and Representative Henderson to discuss further, and then maybe in that discussion, we could figure out exactly what this panel would take shape as if it is ready for March.
yeah, I'm actually not implying that I've done more research on the curriculum than you. I'm just saying I've learned something different.
Yeah.
That is also probably something that we want to consider. And so I would imagine that there are other things that we might unearth as we delve into this a bit further, and just kind of inviting that conversation. Yeah. So looking forward to talk about that.
Yeah, I'd be interested in talking more about what shape it could take, because I'm also thinking of broadening in terms of not just standards, but we've been pushing for science of reading. So that's another point of alignment that LEAs across the city are trying to move towards alignment with science of reading, and how OSSI intersects with that, because they've been charged with assessing curricula that do or do not match. So I think that needs to be part of the discussion. And also probably to some extent what's available. I think there's a problem curriculum that's available, and we may need to think how we need to push back against the constraints of like curriculum publishing to be able to support schools in incorporating the longer reading. So I agree. I think this is a very important topic. The other way of broadening, and Representative Thompson said this, of it not just being a DCPS issue, but more broadly, like, what do parents get to know about the curricula that schools are using and when? Because that process plays out, you know, in all LEAs. So, and I don't think it's as transparent as probably like it can be at this point. I know we have the course catalog now, and it does offer a chance for you to see the curricula, and LEAs opted to include that. So I think there's an information gap that we might to.
Yeah, I would say two main points. One, I think this is an important thing that we need to like figure out a thoughtful path to approach. And I'll come back to that in a second. I don't think it's right to make the decision for a panel for March on this right now. But I think the piece around alignment is critical, because at NASB, one thing that came, in the national conference, out of repeatedly is the alignment between standards, curriculum and assessment. And so like, there have also been concerns that we've gotten from, some public meeting in which Representative Chang and I have followed up with, DCPS to kind of see what type of curriculum is offered. We're not getting clear answers just yet. So I think it's important to say, yes, this, situation at Deal did get citywide attention, but it is a citywide problem that I know is affecting other schools too. And from a practitioner perspective, talking with teachers, I'm sure students could speak to this as well. Like, kids have been reading, like, I mean, test prep has been a dominant trend for a long time, to push standardized tests and to push higher test scores. So, I mean, while this is something that we're dealing with in this moment in time, like, this is part of a much broader pattern, in which many veteran teachers that I work with and have worked with over a decade have bemoaned the fact that kids are not reading as much because there's no joy in reading because you're reading a short passage to answer a quick question, rather than really developing a love of reading and literature, which I think is valuable in and of itself.
May I ask, so you don't think, I think we have time between now and March to fine tune this working with the committee. My only trepidation in delaying, we could wait on a vote for March later. But my fear in delaying would be that if we say we're not gonna do this, in March, but then we really need April for the work that it's gonna need to be discussed with the graduation requirements. Then we end up punting to May. And I do fear at that point, we won't be able to have a thoughtful discussion about this and get something to DCPS in time to create the types of corrections we need with LEA and, I'm sorry, not LEA, LSAT involvement and LEA involvement for the charters. If we want to have that level of transparency with the parents in particular. So I think there's got to be a little bit of lead time before school year 26, 27. So like I would like to, if you need March for your work, then that would be fine. I would then feel comfortable with trying to bring this back up for April. But what I would worry is that if we don't do anything at all, and then we really need April for your work, then this would get punted to May, and that might be too late.
Okay,
It's three.
yeah, there's three on the table. I think we talked about two, and then the last one was, but.
Yeah, but I'm not making a particular, that was just to, maybe that be April or May, like, I do not want that being, I'm not proposing that for March.
So what we really have is just between these two, and I think what I'm hearing from the argument, those that I've taken, is that I believe changes to the high school graduation requirements update. Hearing from Representative Thompson was April project will be a better fit.
Yes, as I confer with my co-chair, April is a better fit because Representative Thompson was just thinking about.
Okay. Okay, and with that being said, it seems as if for March, something that Representative Brule has brought up, that would be the topic, and we have time to get a panel and see what that's like, and actually name it, because what I have down here is land use arts program, basically, so we can name it something more substantive to the subject matter, but that's what we have, I believe. Now we can call for a vote. For those in favor, it seems like to be, because we have agreed that that's probably the one for launch. All in favor of having that particular, just the language arts to be our March expert panel, all in favor? Any objections? Please note that Vice President.
You object this?
Evidence, yeah.
Okay.
Same result.
Yeah, same result. Noted, we noted. Okay, so we now have our March, so thank you. for everybody engaged. Um. Next on the agenda are committee reports. I feel about,
That's too far out.
yeah, it doesn't have.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, it's gonna move on. Yeah, next on our agenda are our committee reports. A few of our committees did not meet in December, but there are still updates to share. I will call on each committee in alphabetical order, and each chair or co-chair will share out answers and answer any questions from the members. Start with our administrator.
Thank you, President Madison. I'm gonna take a liberty for the record, just explaining in one, like, 30 seconds why I objected to that vote, not because I'm against this work representative tonight, but because I just want to make sure the idea is fleshed out before we put it on the table, but I look forward to fleshing that out. In terms of the administrative committee, we did not meet in December, so there's no, report, but we are meeting later this week, so, and by later this week, I'll meet tomorrow. So, we will, we will have a meeting tomorrow to kind of go over, certain items, and we'll present back in February.
Thank you very much, Vice President. Now we return to college careers and life readiness, and I don't know which one will this time report between our co-chair, but I'm seeing a signaling that it will be representative.
Yes, thank you. So our committee did not meet this past month, but we did have a task force meeting on December 18th. And as we alluded to in the leadership message, that was the meeting that Dr. Mitchell attended. And so it was extremely helpful to have her there to respond to questions on the topic of the changes, proposed changes to the core requirements. So we had the opportunity to pose many questions to her, collect those responses, as well as other questions, thoughts, opinions on the core course requirements generally. And so we also in December held our pre-engagement sessions, two in person, one virtual. And we have been gathering the input in those sessions. We are close to having all of that in one place. We're still collecting the information from the third session, but we will put that into a form to be able to share more widely with the board. I will also say, in light of the discussion at the public meeting, Representative Thompson and I yesterday, met with Chief Bowden from the school board, to talk with who they would like to have see the task force, and for us to be able to say this is what the work would look like. And so we will be working to incorporate that change, as well as a change in the position of one of the existing task force members has left a job at WIC, is now working at Friendship, but we also will have a replacement from the WIC. The person who was representing the WIC has tons of relevant experience beyond just representing WIC, so we wanted to keep her task force. So we're going to do that and add a new member in 85.
So you basically will have two new members, because you're keeping the one with the transfer off, but add it. Further questions? I'm going to do that first, and I'll come back to you, Vice President.
Just a quick procedural question on it. So I know Representative Johnson and Lana were very eager to try to get the post sectors seated as a government entity. We decided to postpone that, but I think the goal was at the last public meeting to have a vote January meeting. So just procedurally, for new business, do we need to vote to approve the that merged resolution onto the agenda to board today? Is that the intention? Because I think we want to avoid having to do this emergency. So if we could, have a vote to either just put the one that Representative Johnson Law and I had on and then amended, or we could just do a vote to put the merged one today. I would be up for either, but I wanted to avoid the emergency procedure again, then we could include SAC in the discussion. If we were able to have a vote today.
I think, a couple of things, don't believe the SAT just takes in my admin vote, so this will be technically an admin vote. The resolution, we as the co-chair asked, for this to be a conversation at this meeting, we did, when we had such a change of timing. In addition to the fact that, we need to change the sunset date for the task force. And so, I think I made the assumption, that because that was our ask publicly, we will not be on the agenda. If not, when we go to business, we will make the request, that updating, the initial resolution will be on the agenda, which would address changes in membership, sunset dates. Instead of, and that way we did not have to do an emergency, but we also had time, to rectify or have the requisite conversations. And we can do one thing instead of a piecemeal approach.
That's great. That works great.
Great. President, Vice President Williams.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate the work you both did, so thank you. Just zoom out a little bit. How many additional, scheduled meetings do you have, and do you have topics yet decided on for those meetings? 'Cause I know we wanted to like focus on special education first, and I'm just curious kind of what comes next, and then where things are with that.
Yes, so the next one we'll be talking about capstone projects, we've had a fair amount of concerning questions raised about. We'll also be doing a more, like, we also want to reflect back the engagement, session information to the task force, at our next meeting. And then soon we're gonna pivot towards the moving from the gathering to the putting together or positive, recommendations about the proposals, so, I expect that, beginning in March, we'll turn towards that orientation.
And I think February, we are supposed to delve a little bit into CTE. And some of the like. Workforce, like CTE workforce and.
Like the endorsements.
Yes, the endorsements, with how CTE pathways and some flexibility concerns. Bringing into some of, you know, the perspectives that our employers have on the task force of addressing that particular opportunity for pathway. So that would take us to March. That would take us to February, because what we did was we asked the task force what were the things that they had, the most, questions, interests, you know, what was meaty enough for discussion. Those were the things we heard, and so we chunked it, and all the videos are online. So we chunked it to be able to delve into each thing. We also bring in additional voices, to be able to give perspective. So, last month it was, Dr. Mitchell was talking about like the social fitness and engagement and why. We will, do something different for the capstone. We were looking at like which LEOs we have a capstone, like that kind of thing. So that should take us through. One of the reasons we'll get into this in business, but we will be asking for an extension in the sunset date, both because initially I think we have a certain expectation of when the recommendations will be delivered. And then we needed to kind of start to delve into adjust our timeline, which is why I believe we go for February, March. February, and we wanted to extend it at least through when we expect what our CDME said, because we made a note. So we think it's prudent to extend to at least that.
Are there any other questions before the committee? All right, thank you guys at the end for, even though you guys did not meet, you had a lot of conversation of things that are very relevant. So thank you.
And I'm sorry, I haven't talked to this, right?
Mr. Sad?
Survey still.
Yes, the survey is still open, so folks are not able to attend the engagement sessions. Please do continue to share the survey with them and encourage them to complete that, because that is part of our information gathering, and it very much mirrors the kinds of questions we ask.
When does it close?
We haven't put a hard date on closing because we want, yeah, as much as we can get, so, so we can send another prompt, that makes it easy for you all to share. An email or newsletter.
I'm proud to say I shared personally, so take it out and give it. So thank you guys again. Educator excellence, we're coming to Representative Chang.
Great. Good evening, everybody. We did not meet in December. We're hosting an additional meeting in January, following up on Dr. Johnson Law's something that she brought up at our last working session. We'll be hosting a panel within the committee looking at training for professional development opportunities for educators around special ed. And the staff has been working on continuing the work of supporting early educators, and we will be doing focus groups with current early educators. How do we say this? Educators who are currently still early. To better understand their experiences and make sure that we're, as always, building off of what the research that we have done as a board already, and but customizing it to the moment and the real experiences of people. So more to report after January.
Thank you, Representative. Are there questions for Representative Chang? Representative Vice President.
Yeah, no questions. Representative Chang, I appreciate your leadership and focusing us on these two like projects that are very important. Just want to remind folks that the council has a teacher retention hearing coming up at the end of January, and just from personal interactions I've heard in the WTU forums that I'm in and amongst many friends in charter sectors that even more teachers are kind of planning on leaving this year. So like the work that we have and focusing on early teachers is really just stem the pipeline of teachers not leaving the classroom. And I think I think are planning on testifying as a board, and I'm planning on testifying in my individual capacity. But if any other members want to sign up or students want to sign up to testify on January 21st, the council is having a hearing, and it's a critical issue for ensuring stability and sustainability in our schools.
Thank you, Vice President. Are there any other comments? Questions? Thank you very much. Again, thank you, Representative Chang. We now get to turn to talk to our students. Student Advisory Committee.
Good evening, everyone. This was the third SAC meeting of the school year, and we had about 60 student members in attendance. Upon arrival, the SAC members participated in a Mentimeter prompt answering the question, what is the current cell phone policy at your school? 7 responded that phones must be off and away. 6 responded that no cell phones are allowed. 6 also responded that cell phones are allowed at certain times, and 4 responded that cell phones must be turned in, and only 1 responded phones are allowed at any time. We also introduced Aussie, who led a presentation on identifying areas of cell phone policy that Aussie should further explore, informing supplementary materials for implementation, and further editing the cell phone policy, essentially identifying all the gaps between cell phone policy. At the end, Aussie also invited SAC members who are interested and available to serve on a focus group that would dive deeper into the topic at a later date.
Chamberlain introduced Shaw, who explained how the DC Education Research Collaborative and her research colleagues from Georgetown University, Urban Institute, and University of District of Columbia can support the SAC's research projects. Shaw and her colleagues, along with each student representative, broke into their corresponding groups to redefine their search questions and data collection strategies for their project topics identified at the November SAC meeting. Offline from December through early January, members will identify which research questions that have already been answered with available data or research in a draft data collection instrument. At the end of January, SAC members will finalize their data collection instruments and strategies.
And at the last couple minutes of our meeting, Dr. Fleischer announced that feedback on the student convening will happen at the January meeting. And I announced that the state board may be convening recent high school graduates, i.e. older siblings of SAC members, to provide feedback on the proposed changes to high school graduation requirements. The next SAC meeting is next Monday, January 12th. And the only actions we have in our committee is that our members will be continuing to work on our individual SAC projects offline, and we'll continue to work on them in the next couple meetings.
All right, I see question hands going up quickly from Vice President Williams.
Thanks. I've asked you this before, so I apologize for the redundancy. What are the project areas that y'all are working on right now? Yeah.
Cool. So we have mental health, student safety,
We have the other, which is like an umbrella of like different individual like concerns that students have within the SAC.
so
We also have college and career readiness. as
And we
well.
have student safety.
So 4 total, but one of the 4 is other.
and some, like, there are more independent projects that like 2 to 3 members are doing, and I think we have like a school nurses one, and we have one on like healthy school lunch options as well, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so 4 main.
Mental health, safety,
College and.
college career.
And,
Representative Goulet?
Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of this, but you mentioned the agenda. Representative Best and I just had a really productive meeting. I don't want to get ahead to my report, but what we would love to be able to do is either meet with the 4 of you who are the lead representatives on this. Or just, if you think it'd be better, we could do the whole SAC on the agenda for Monday. Either way, that is the preference of students. But we'd like to kind of figure out, how you think we could partner on empowering student voice, these convenience that we'll call them. And, since you are the voice we want to empower and listen to this. So, just let us know on that. I'm not putting you on the spot, and I can huddle together and figure out what's best for Monday, or you'd rather us meet with, the leadership of SAC first. You just let us know what your preferences, but we're representing best and are available to have that discussion.
Maybe during the meeting.
Yeah, we can.
Is that-
We have a meeting, a planning meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m.
Say that again,
We have a planning meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m. between me and the 4 student representatives to plan for the Monday meeting, just putting together the agenda and the run of show. If that's okay with the student representatives, I could send out an invite to Representative Goulet and Best. Again, it's 6 p.m. tomorrow.
Well, thank you, Dr. Fleischer. Were there other questions for our student advisory committee? All right, thank you guys. I always do is reports. I like how you guys do them, so I appreciate that. Tag team. Everybody gets an opportunity to speak and present. So now we'll move to student experience and engagement. Representative Goulet.
Okay, thank you. I'll go a little bit out of order of how we did it here, because I'll turn that at the end to Representative Best if there's anything that we would like to add to this, because he's so deeply involved with it. But, we've talked about, with each of our committee members, Representative Bankins and Chamberlain gave us a presentation on the SAC research projects they're doing, and really doing great work there with Dara Shaw, we're at the DC Education and Research Collaborative. So we had an exciting presentation on that at the committee meeting. Dr. Fleischer updated members on the chronic absenteeism crosswalk, and representatives with Johnson Law talked about the inclusion of students with disabilities in there and how that data is reflected. And Representative Colson talked about students experiencing homelessness and how that data can be reflected better through that crosswalk. I gave members an update on something that is in committee, but I need to continue working on, and that's the issue of families impacted by the change in the kindergarten cutoff date. A number of these families went to pay $20,000 a year to go to Montgomery County Public Schools to put their kids there because they did not want their children traumatized by missing kindergarten. So they may not try to come back into our system, and there's further conflict on the horizon on this very troubling issue. So I'll keep the board abreast of that, and certainly the committee as well. But what I would look to is to try to, if this cannot be worked out, bring forward the resolution and a permanent statutory solution this time. I mean, we proposed an emergency solution, but just to be real clear about this, we have a kindergarten policy that no other state has in the country. It's deeply out of line with what everybody else does, and my concern is it's taking students who may just have slight developmental delays, pushing them into kindergarten, before they even turn 5, and ending up taking kids who just need another year and then placing them in IEPs, because we're rushing them to try to get them into kindergarten. So I'm deeply concerned about this. It makes absolutely no sense why we're doing it the way we are, and I think we need to stay on top of this, because it's gonna come back to us more when those kids try to go to first grade. In fall, and then enrollment's coming up. So I'll keep everybody updated on that. Last item I want to turn to is the discussion of the convenings. Then we had a discussion in committee on this, general discussion. We voted it out to allow Representative Best and myself to first, continue conversations with MECFA, which we had a great discussion with them, and then bring it to the full working session today, which we're going to be doing right now. So the conversation we had with MECFA, the strategy we're thinking of right now, and this is what we wanted to present to people, is looking at trying to do 3 smaller, I guess we're gonna still use the word convenings, at least for now, 3 smaller convenings to hear student voice. Probably looking at trying to move them around, spread them out geographically throughout the city, having wards 1, 2, and 3, maybe kind of collectively be one, but students obviously, since they, sometimes go to school in one ward and attend another, can come to any of these, but we want to have them, spread out. So we can reach as many students as possible. Then we probably do 4, 5, and 6, and have one for 7 and 8 in one of those 2 wards, and then come back with a 4th larger convening that would kind of wrap up everything. It would be, considered a citywide finale to empowering student voice, particularly looking, and we talked about looking at the issue of our committee, which is providing safety and supports for our students. So kind of our target goal, and I think I may be on the low end of this because, everybody's really enthused about it, is hoping we get 25 to 50 students for the first 3, and then shooting for 50 to 100, or, I think Metro was really excited about even maybe the 150 number for the final one. So those are really exciting things that we're looking at. The timeline we're hoping to look at for this is sitting down in early February to hammer out more details with MICFA, with the students that they have in there. And then, with SAC to see how you'd like to participate in this process. Then to do the 4 convenings in March through May. So we get them done before school lets out. And then if there's any specific issues that really come up, this would be outside of the work we do with MICFA, but if there's like topics that come up, potentially considering those then as separate roundtables that we would do. And we could do this over the summer, late May, June. But those would be separate from the student voice empowerment process that we're looking at. So I think that's everything that I've covered there. We would, the one thing I'm forgetting on this is that we would ask, and this is something Mick mentioned too, is that if members would be willing to come to the ones that are in their area and that we have is supported by the board itself, it would really kind of lend a lot of credence to it. So for example, when we do one, with students from 1, 2, and 3, that would at least get those members to show up to it, same with the 4, 5, and 6, and then maybe everybody comes to the big one at the end. I understand that people will have scheduling conflicts, but just if we could at least try to elevate this, because I think the excitement the students are going to feel for it is to be able to speak directly to public officials here, and then to have an end product at the end. And then our end product that we talked about at the retreat is to do a report, a resolution, and then possibly legislation with a collection of best initiatives that we've learned from our students and how to improve those 2 conditions that the committee was signed at the retreat and then subsequently at the vote. Did I miss anything?
No, you're spot on.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Other questions?
I just want to thank, in conclusion, Representative Best for all his leadership. I mean, he's the one who's pulled this together with Mick, but he got them on board. It's just been amazing in terms of bringing everyone together on this. So thank you, Brandon, for everything you've done on this. Yeah, we wouldn't happen without you.
Yeah, and the staff for working with us.
Yeah, Executive Director Butler was in the meeting and he really did very well. So I'm grateful for that.
I'm happy that we came to this good part of working this all out, and I know of Representative Best work because I've seen it in other areas when he and I work together. So thank you both for the work that you guys are doing in this area. There's a question over here. Yes, sir.
My question was, statement / question, as a person as a student who has, lives in Ward 7 and has gone to schools in different wards like 8 and 4, I would be, you know, personally, I would like to maybe if it's possible, help out with this. With student engagement. Because there's a lot of people at my school that I know personally that I knew since elementary school. And knowing a lot of them, we live in the same neighborhood and it's, quite a stretch to get to school every day. So I think it's definitely an interesting topic and a great segue into engaging students.
Not only can you do that, we were gonna hit you up to try to. You're getting ahead of us. That was gonna be the ask to you all, not just you all, but then the members of SAC in general. But yes, we would love that and for you to all participate as leaders in this process, because we're there to listen, like the adults are there to listen, and I think the students are there to share their voices with us on what would make them feel safer at school and what would give the students the supports they need to thrive. And that's what we're looking to do through this. So you read our mind.
And we're looking forward to like presenting that to you all, so that as a group, you can share how you feel like you would best want to support this initiative. I think we already have, I think we have a group of 75 students already with MICFA who are like engaged and ready. And so I think, having, that group plus you all and hopefully other people that we can bring together, I think this could be absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, because student safety is already a big topic at my school, because especially on my school's redesign committee, that's one of the things we're talking about, maybe incorporating into our pilot. So I'm definitely always interested into that. So yeah.
Looking forward to working with you, man.
Thank you. Just raise a question for Vice President Williams.
Yeah, just more of an idea and a suggestion. Yeah, MICFA, I worked with MICFA for decades, so I'm so excited that you like jumped on this because I think they're perfectly situated. And I'm excited about like how much participation there is in the SAC this year. So I think there's a variety of ways to be very effective on this. One plug that I think could be super helpful that I forgot was MICFA has a couple of citywide fellowships, which I think they think of first, but they also have student voice councils now in schools. And so have you talked to them about the student voice councils?
Vancia has talked about them in our meetings.
Okay, so they're already thinking about that. I think that's great because then, it's not just, it will be school-based, but it's also, many of our schools have students from all over the city. So I think that as long as they're thinking about that piece, because I know they've expanded programming this year, then that can create even more participation.
In our early conversations, the thought was, in my view, this is obviously like pre-planning. I mean, this is pre-planning, so everything's coming to the board to see like if we want to do this or not. But their thought and our thought would be that we would have different students representing certain areas that would lead certain parts, everything from facilitation to outreach. And we think that it would be much more meaningful, and we think that we would get a higher number of participants as well, because who's better to get students to participate than other students, and to work with them and to train them on some of the facilitation tactics, so that they would have those skills as well to implement. So yeah, we're just really excited about this. There's a really good vibe between the two organizations, or between like where we were in at MICFA. And so we're just really excited about the possibilities right now.
Are the students able to get community service hours for?
That's a great question.
Would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Make sure we got a sign.
Answer is yes. You're sure.
Eric's gonna sign all the papers.
Right, so you get those out. All right, is there any other questions or comments for us?
Just a quick question, for you, President Patterson. So, we would like obviously the board to, support this and be able to put our seal on the board, instead of just having it be a committee initiative. So, we need at some point for approval on this. Now, we could do that now, we could do it at the next meeting, but we wanted to be able to make sure you felt we were on the right track on this and that nobody felt like there needed to be like a change in pace that was drastic at this point. Now, what we can do is to bring it back, after we do the February meeting, maybe we could bring it to the March session, the committee update. Maybe get a vote then on it, but just wanted to make sure with everybody that you didn't think we needed to make a major departure from what we're doing right now, that this just generally sounded like it was on the right track. I mean, do you think we need to vote at this time, or should we wait?
I think we should wait, and I appreciate you asking and raising that question first. Because we want to make sure that it does have the stamp of approval from the whole board and everything, and that we're on the right track, and it feels that way. So that being the case, the committee can decide if that's February or March, but I'm just told that.
Right, great.
Okay.
We'll keep proceeding then, on this track, and then bring it back to the February, working session.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I see no other questions or comments for this committee. I'm gonna move now, members, there are external committee updates. Are there any, external committee updates or reports that you want to share that happened in December?
My next is the Navidad session, the commissioners on that. And we have a meeting supervisor committee coming up this month, is a bi-monthly meeting.
Thank you, Representative Thompson.
Every day counts, meeting for December was canceled, so don't be canceled.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Anything else on external committees? Okay, thank you. What normally happens at this particular juncture is that we take a break, where we are moving pretty well. And I want to be very conscious of people's time, so I'm going to ask that we don't take a break. And that we continue to move through our agenda. Are we okay with that? I'm seeing more nods than no's. So thank you. All right. We will now move to new business and other discussions. We will now move on. I would like to ask members if they have anything to add to the following list for new business. What we have currently is 2025 annual report overview, leadership election speeches, and I also have one that came via email from Representative Dr. Colson early morning system. And I believe during an earlier part of our conversation, we were just gonna also kind of talk through how we're gonna add the high school graduation requirements, the addition of the people. Right ahead.
So I would definitely want that one in there, just so we can then, vote that through, that resolution, that you're working on, so we can get it on the agenda for the meeting, if we haven't done so already, because I just would rather not have to do an emergency vote on it. So just, that would be kind of a formality to go that onto the public meeting agenda for January. And then secondly, I would like to bring up again the issue of the English language curriculum issue, to discuss a possible letter by the board, and then we get the issue referred to the committee, so that then we can continue to work in committee.
They have more time,
Well, I'd like to try to look at getting the letter out, which would be a short-term solution to it, but then the longer-term issue of a resolution, which I'd be glad to work on and get a draft to the committee. But we'd be then to work with the relevant committee on this issue, which would be, I believe, CC and FAR.
right?
Dr. Patterson.
I'm sorry, I thought there were several things to email. In addition to the LA issue, the issue of the chamber, the digital literacy, as well as the two CRs, I believe were also requested to be put on the agenda.
Okay. Not in my notes, but was that what you were raising your hand, sir? What's the digital literacy? Okay. Were there others? Okay. With that being the case, we will now start with the 2025 annual report overview. Deputy Director.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'm gonna go ahead here. But it is that time of year where we share the annual report, which essentially highlights what all our agency has done over the past calendar year. And I really just want to give a very high level overview of what we're expecting to have in there and that you all will be voting on at the public meeting. But as a reminder to anybody who's new or to everybody, this is essentially what the annual report does. The policy team drafts the bulk of the content. And this year we do have a lot of support from our communications team, so I just want to thank all of them. And another thing we decided to do this year was, unlike previous years, we have done the design and editing in-house. So led by Andrew Roof, our public information officer. And like I said, the primary goal is to really just showcase the impactful work that the state board has done in service of DC's students, teachers, and communities. So some of what we're including this year, a section on focusing our work, of course, the new strategic priorities, the high school graduation requirements task force, ways that we and you all have engaged with the communities, whether that's at events like EdFest or interagency collaboration, like with the council breakfast, other leaders in the education cluster, and then events like the recess at the Capitol as well. Another example of course, elevating student voice. So we do have a lot in there from 2025. There was the presentation at the NASB conference as well. So just showing how the state board has done that in 2025, as well as some of the other policy topics that were explored over the year. So if you compare this to previous years, at least the past few, the structure is slightly different, but we, as you saw in the title, it says a year looking forward. So I think that we felt that structuring it in this way around some of these like topic areas and content areas made a little bit more sense for this particular year. So for next steps, we will be sending you the draft on Monday and ask that you review it by Friday and provide feedback. It's the same thing I've been asking for the past several years. So number one, what is missing, if anything? And are there any other photos that you would like for us to include? You know, we know that in addition to the photos that Andrew and staff take during events, that there may be others that you all really want to have featured. So those are the two main questions as usual. And once we do kind of a final review with you all and the staff, we will vote on this at the January 21st public meeting. Assuming it passes, we would then post it to the website and just share widely with all of our partners and continue leveraging and elevating. This is a great tool that you brought to meetings with council members and other, meetings that you may have or just out in the community. It's a great way to share the work and just a reminder of what you all do. Andrew, anything to add from you?
No, I think you covered everything. I just want to say that, it's been a process to put this together. But it's been very good to look back on everything that we've done over the past year. There's a lot of stuff in there, a lot of good stuff too. I'm excited to get this over to you guys. So I can stop too. We'll look like a little finagling with the pictures.
Any questions? Oh, maybe. I know in previous years, before my time, they had a SBOE pets page with photos such as Kimba's.
That's interesting.
Yeah. There might be one, from I think one of the events. Yeah, in costume. So yes, he might make it in there again.
All right,
Okay.
appreciate that.
That concludes my piece.
Well, thank you very much, Debbie, Director. Yeah, I know this report is just one support because it's so much to have. For me, when I think late about this year, a lot of great things happen, but I always like acknowledgement. People work so far behind the scenes, so I hope that there could be something about Dr. Fleischer in there, because his recognition of the hard work that he does.
Yes, they're absolutely, his award at the NASB conference for his leadership, working with our students. Absolutely.
That's my biggest thing, so, like, now it's that hard work, and thanks very much. Okay, thank you. Any other comments? All right, thank you, guys. All right, next item, as a reminder, for the state board bylaws, we elect a president and vice president to serve 1-year terms. At the public meeting on January 21st, following the call to order, and the announcement of a quorum, we will have leadership elections. The newly elected president will chair the remainder of the January public meeting. At this time, any representative who is interested in the role of president or vice president has the option to share a few words with their colleagues. So the floor is now open, and I am looking around to see if there's people who want to share. So, Representative Henderson.
I would like to make one last run, for the position of president. I know some of you have known me for longer than others, but this is my excited face. I'm very excited. We have strategic priorities. If elected, my priorities would be to equip and empower both individual members and committees to do the work towards those strategic priorities. What I would offer, promise and ask to be held accountable to would be to stay on top of all the various streams of work, to ensure follow through on both process and communication, closing all feedback loops, or advancing them, as might be needed. And I would also like to be in the position of leadership to lead the collaboration with OSSE, the last steps of the graduation requirements. So for those reasons, all those intentions, I would like to pursue the position of president. I will reach out to you in the coming week to say more about vision and answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Since we are on the subject of president, I will also say that I would like to run for a second term, a 1-year term for president. And I'm running because I think we have hit a very good stride. This was a tumultuous year. I think more so than any other year we probably experienced. I know that I've experienced on the State Board of Education because of the administration that we had come through and some of the changes that happened over the course of the season of this year. I think we addressed those issues well. I think we collaborated well. I think some bridges were built in spite of all the tumultuous times that we just had. I think we are closer to having relationships with our partners over at the PCSB, which we never have had. For the first time, we had someone basically from the PCSB come up to our meetings, and we're seeing those type of collaboration across the board. And I think that's very, very important to continue to build on those relationships, because that does institute basically a half of our sector of families that we serve, about 47%. And I think I work very hard to make sure that we always work very equitable in having those type of relationships. Additionally, I think we've done very well with making sure that we have maintained our credibility in spite of all the things that are happening. I think our board, thanks to previous leadership and leadership that I've worked with, that we have a credibility where people actually look at us and listen to what we have to say. We've worked with council members this year on a lot of things that got passed as laws. Some of them not as popular, cell phones, but the fact of the matter is that we had council members that were coming to us to collaborate with us on things and see it as credible sounding boards. And we were actually in front of a lot of things that they proposed. I think that's collaboration. That's sometimes behind the scenes work that we do. And that's what leadership does. It makes sure that we follow the course, work sometimes very publicly, sometimes behind the scenes to get things done. I think I've done that very well, and I would like to continue that. So those are the reasons why I'll. We're now open for any other voices or positions.
So I'm not throwing my head in for president, but I would throw my head in for the role of vice president. And I would, I'm gonna reach out to all the members here, certainly speak with all of you. Ask for your support on this, and what I think I would bring to this role is really just an experience that fits well with what the role of the administrative committee does. And as we know, the vice president chairs the administrative committee. A lot of those duties fall within the realm of budgeting, agency management, staff relations. That's what I've done throughout my career. And I really have a deep respect for the work our staff does here at the board. I want to be able to work with them on achieving the goals that they see for the agency, but then also to work with members for the goals that you would have. I kind of view the role of the vice president as being the one who the president, assigns tasks to. If a member needs help getting something done, I believe I could fill in that role. It's my experience, not just with writing resolutions, but also writing laws. In some cases, if we look at that route. So my goal would be to try to help facilitate the goals of the president and of individual members. And I'm going to call each of you though to ask for your support, hear any questions or concerns you have, and then answer any questions that you would have for me about what I would bring to the role or what you'd like to see me do. So thank you so much.
Others? President?
Yeah, I would like to say that over this past year, it's been an honor to serve as the vice president of the State Board of Education. But I am not planning on seeking additional leadership roles in this upcoming election. I hope that I continue to kind of earn everyone's trust in navigating what we've gone through this past year, and I'm really excited for the work ahead. But I think I can best lead in the classroom every day and by supporting our committee work. So I'm not choosing to continue running for leadership at this point. Appreciate it.
Other that may want to run for a position of leadership. Okay. I believe. Our deputy director, take it from who's in this.
Yes, we, as always, the team is taking copious notes. Then the next item is, there's another.
All right,
Speeches, we would just move on to the next new business item.
thank you. And the next business item that I have, I have some other things added, but it is. Do not.
Oh, sorry, it's really.
Okay, thank you. And what I have down here, the code money systems, and that is Representative Dr. Colson.
All right, thank you. So nationally, the boards, locally, we've been talking about chronic absenteeism for a while. Additional research is showing that there is enough data already being collected for us to know what students will probably be impacted with chronic absenteeism when they transfer over to high school. Data shows that you definitely see a trend, a spike in the wrong direction towards 8th grade, and there's also a spike specifically in the female gender when you get to 8th grade. And so there's enough data already being collected for us to transfer that information over to a receiving school, but that's not necessarily happening. So the resolution that I am proposing is that we look to ensure that all of the information that's already being collected through our current school, through the early warning system, is then being transferred over to the new receiving school. I'm sure that we all know that when you're working with an EC, education system, education campus, whether that's elementary and middle and high school, those teachers and staff members are with the students for a very long time, so they have lots of information. But we definitely want to make sure that when students go on to the next school, that information transfer. And even when students are transferring from DCPS to charter or charter to DCPS, it's still very important that we have that information so that we can reduce chronic absenteeism. So that's what I would like to propose that we look at. And ideally, I don't know if this is where I'm supposed to say this or if this is your part, President Patterson, but it makes sense that it aligns with the work that we are already doing in the C committee.
Thank you so much, and putting me right in the vein that I need to. So, first of all, I'll ask, are there any questions for Representative Dr. Colson?
I just want to make sure I understand. So, the recommendation is to explore what early warning systems look like in DC.
No, so DCPS, and other schools already have early warning systems, that's standard, like nationwide, most school, LEAs do that. The disconnect comes is when they're transferring from one school system to another, so we wanna make sure that that information is being transferred. And specifically, the information when we're talking about middle school students transferring to high school.
Okay, so maybe I should like rephrase.
Okay.
We're making sure, I mean, the recommendation is to explore what vehicles we use to implement the transfer, what steps we need to take, who we need to encourage.
So
Across all the games.
across all LEAs, yes. But,
Representative Boulay, and then we come to Representative Anderson.
I just want to thank you, Representative Colson, for flagging this for me. We and I talked about this briefly, and I couldn't believe that even all the hard work we do to try to identify these issues in middle school, then you basically start over when the student goes to high school. You know, and it's not even that it's necessarily transferring to the other, from charter sector to the DCPS sector or vice versa. It's even within DCPS, they start over. So like we're losing all of the valuable information that we may have learned about why a student may be struggling with absenteeism, and basically have to relearn, the school has to relearn that information about the student. And you could end up, losing all the progress you've made in addressing the student's challenges by the time, you realize there's a problem, months may have gone by and the student may be back to where they were experiencing struggles. So it's disappointing we're not doing this already, but you've, I think, proposed it. I mean, I would love this to come to the C committee, because I think what we could do is prepare a resolution with solutions then. Have discussions with DCPS and then pass a resolution by the board to encourage this seamless transfer of information, not just within DCPS, but then within sectors, so that no matter where a student goes, there's a record of the challenges and supports they need throughout their path. So thank you for flagging this for the board, and I can't wait to work with you on trying to get this before the board shortly.
Thank you, Representative Anderson.
Thank you. Representative Goulet's comments kind of answered my question. I was wondering if it's a within DCPS problem as well as. Going across. And then the other question I would have is if all the charter delegates have something comparable, yeah, and if it's close enough, or like how it could feed into a uniform standard.
I think if it isn't already with other LEAs, it needs to be standardized, but what we're essentially talking about is kind of like the old school, your CUNY file. And sometimes those CUNY files, although they should transfer, they don't always. So, as Representative Boulay said, we don't want to waste that time with the new school trying to figure out what's going on and what works and what supports should be in place. If they've already created the will and they know it's working, let's just continue that work at the next school.
I wanted to ask if you were taking any student inquiries of that transition at all. I know for me, when I was in middle school, I was in a charter school and I ended up transferring over to a DCPS school, and that transition was a little rough for me because one, there were a lot of things that I missed from me being in a DCPS school prior, but then being taken out of the DCPS system and then being put back in, and basically people who have been in DCPS knowing all like these different types of standards or information, but because I missed 3 years being in the system, there's a lot of things not only on the student end that isn't known, but also on the parent end. But I also just wanted to reciprocate the fact that I would be willing to provide any information or feedback from my personal experience and also gathering other students to share their experiences as well.
Everything that we do is for you all and the future students, so it's always welcome. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? All right, seeing no other. Seeing no other comments. Seeing no other comments or anything, I'm gonna, as Dr. Colson appropriately said, going to the minutes over to the seat committee.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Now, what we have listed is, I'd like the updates that are gonna happen in high school graduation. Requirements, and I'll go to either one of the co-chairs, just what's gonna happen, I guess. Members, and added,
One thing is just the resolution on the.
I'm just gonna make sure that we add that to our resolution. As a resolution. Okay.
I guess, maybe I should say this. I move that we update the resolution around high school graduation.
Second.
It's been probably moved and seconded, all in favor? It's been seconded and both on the unanimous, so it's going to be part of our meeting. I believe that's for the amended resolution. Thank you so much for commenting. Now I'm going to move to, the letter that Representative Lake Ward 3 to speak on.
Yes, so what I would like to do on this issue of the English language curriculum changes to the current is to, first of all, ask that, you know, as we end this, that it gets sent, the issue gets sent to the committee, because I would like me work for committee, so that way it's in the committee. And I can work with the co-chairs of the committee in this. But prior to that would be a request that we send, as we do that work, that we prepare a letter, that we then circulate, and it would be official vote at that point, but people could decide whether they want to sign it or not. But I'd like to do a letter to at least request ECPS to consider bringing some of the novels back. And just because I think it's such an important opportunity for our middle school students to be able to read full length novels. That could be melded into the curriculum. I'm realistic that we won't get all 4 back in there, but maybe we could get 2 novels incorporated into the curriculum. And I feel like the larger issues that we can tackle in the community. Like for me, the important issues of even making sure we include the LSATs in these discussions, making sure that for charters, the LSA, that they're included in this, and that parents then have an opportunity to provide feedback and then transparently to school prior to making a curriculum change. And that's something I think we can get done that process for next year. And then just also getting substantive answers about what we're going to do with this change in the curriculum for English language arts, because a lot of parents have concerns that we've drifted from a curriculum that teaches skills that can benefit students in college and their careers into short-term skills that benefit students on taking standardized tests by, focusing on shorter passages, by drilling those shorter passages, which, I mean, there's value in being able to take tests, but there's also value in being able to have these skills. And I think what we've seen, which continues to alarm and concern me, is even though we've seen our test scores, the DCPS, first jump up and now incrementally go up, what we're not seeing with the same positive trend is students' success in staying in college for the 4 years and graduating from college. And then the reports we heard from employers about job readiness of our students who are graduating is extremely alarming. And the fact that that's not gotten better. So like starting to work with the committee on a longer term discussion of how we balance those competing priorities of time of being good at exams versus having the skills needed to succeed. Because for me, the deliverable, the DCPS needs to focus on, I don't want to call students deliverables, but they are in a way, so no offense to the 3 of the 4 SAC members. But what we should focus on, to me, is not how great our students are on tests, but the deliverable that matters to me is that our students are succeeding long-term after they get out of DCPS, that they graduate with the skills that will provide success for them throughout their life. That's the deliverable. And I think that in part, you gotta do well in tests to be able to do that, but you have to have the other skills too. And just finding that right balance, I think, is in the board's purview, and it's something we should really focus in on, because I think it's important. So I would ask, I'll get the letter ready, I'll work with staff on it. I'll work with the co-chairs of the committee on it. And I think that we don't need to vote on today because we don't have one in front of us. But we would then, I guess, do our thing where we discuss it, and then people who want to sign on. And then I would ask you, President Patterson, to refer this issue for discussion to the committee. And I'm not looking for a specific timeline on it, but I would like to work with both of the co-chairs in crafting the public panel. And then crafting what could be a path towards getting the resolution ready before the summer. If that makes sense. So my motion would be, I guess, to refer this general issue to committee, so I may work with the committee co-chairs on it, and I'll bring a letter back.
So what I will ask. If you could move your motion, state it very clearly.
Okay, so I'd like to move a motion to have the issue of the specific issue of the English language arts curriculum changes, along with the broader issue of how we balance different curriculums within the various standards that this board has set. Those issues that we were discussing earlier about the public panel, that issue be referred to the committee of CCLR for further review, discussion. And I'll be glad to go with the pictures.
So there's been a motion that's been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded by President Colson. All those in favor?
Hey, I am, local representative, we don't know any votes for things, I think we did.
Oh, for, yeah, right, I apologize. No problem. I'm losing here, sorry, no problem. You're on top of this,
I appreciate it. So it will be referred. Okay. All right. Now that it is properly.
I have a quick question for Representative Lake. What is your timeline for getting the letter out? And who are your intended recipients?
So the intended recipient, in my mind, would be the three, it would be both the deputy mayor, OSSI, and DCPS. But I think what we would want to think about is who the decision maker is in this. I think it'd probably be the DCPS, but I want to be sure of that. So I would want to work with the staff of the board, work with the committee co-chairs to find out who we should address it to, and then CC the other two. But I think the goal of the letter and the timeline of it would be that I try to get something together next week on this, working with some of the affected parents. I would like to try to figure out though, how many other schools are affected before we send the letter out and kind of what those experiences have been. And I don't know that right now, which makes me uncomfortable. So I think also trying to maybe work with the board to figure, board staff to figure out like the universe of schools that have opted into this new curriculum as a pilot would be helpful before we send out and ask to make a change. Because I don't like to ask for something until I have the information. So maybe for next week, we could work to see if we can get a list of schools that are using the curriculum, which should be relatively easy to get. And then, and then make an ask to try to see if we can get some long form novels back in some form this year.
Thank you. All right. Let's move on to our last item that was added, which was digital literacy, and that came from Representative Chang.
Digital equity, and it's, I'm raising something that came to my attention from the digital equity group, the moms who've been pushing that since for some time, and they flagged that there was legislation proposed that would repeal the requirement in the DCPS Digital Equity Act of 2022 that DCPS submitted a draft annual technology plan to council for review and comment. I think that there's, they've got, I sent this email to folks, they've got, I think, solid arguments as to why that would follow the act that was passed. And I think it would help if our staff would have the capacity to follow up with DCPS to hear from them too of what the comment is as to why they're asking council to drop this, so we understand what if I just want to make sure we understand what the rationale is on their side too. But with that, would propose we consider writing a letter either to DCPS or to council, depending on what we find, to make sure that we're supporting that everybody has the proper devices that they need in the classroom.
If members are supportive, staff will follow.
Are there any comments from anyone else?
Supportive.
That's,
And supportive.
from what I understand, most members are supportive.
Jen, do we have the capacity to?
Send a letter to council. Yes,
Thank you.
so as part, it sounds to me like as part of the letter, is getting some of that additional information. That you,
I would love to understand, we've seen their testimony, I would love to also understand. DCPS's, why they're asking council to change it, and then. If it's possible to get to Councilmember Henderson's team, why they're proposing legislation.
yeah, we'll do what we can based on, the content of the letter and.
Right, thank you.
I'm sorry,
Not good.
did this, I just sent what it implemented.
That does.
Per request of the mayor.
Excuse me, yes, that would make more sense.
Okay.
So yes.
Thank you.
Move around. Okay, the last two things that we have two CRs. That one to be presented. One for Gaten Brady, whom I know very well, for a companion setting. And one for our.
John Bishop, I have two, members of the community, which recently transitioned at the end of, the year. Both of them have been active in education media in different ways. And of course, the services, we want to make sure, that their contributions are, honored. So happy to pull information, so have it. But these details on your resolutions to share, with, those voting yourselves.
Thank you. Representative, Johnson Law, I know you gave me a great job, I'm gonna speak on it as well. Did you want to add anything in particular to her resolution?
Just to share, like, just to highlight her work with Dave, just being a Dave parent leader, she was like one of we call them the OGs. And so she was one of our elders, but she was like one of the original, like, founding parents of Dave. And just, with her work, with the Metropolitan Women Democratic Club, and I think the Democratic Federation of Women, she just has so many things. I know she was the previous chair of, I believe, the Warding Democrats at one point in time back in the day. And so if, I don't mind working with staff just to make sure that we highlight just her, like, it's a legacy, she really has a legacy, and so I'm just really sad that she's not here, just wanna do her justice, so thank you for the opportunity to speak about it.
And what I'll add to that, I been Gaten Brady for a very long time. And she was very involved in various campaigns. Because she's always been very active in campaigning, her expertise in helping individuals who are running for. I'll also say that she also served on my executive board when I was Ward A Dem's president. I believe she was secretary at that particular time. So I'm also helped with some of that. I know her daughter very well. Very close relationship. It's a very hard loss for a lot of us who knew her personally. Because we didn't, a lot of people didn't know she was ill. I knew because I knew the family and some other members. But it got a lot of people off. So that being said, definitely, this doesn't work or anything like that. We'll work with the staff, make sure that you have information. Other members in
that works, like with every resolution, state and ceremonial, I will assign it to staff and, anybody who expressed wanting to give feedback on drafts, yes, we do welcome that, especially for people who knew person. That's, we want to make sure that's all included.
All right, I think with the discussion on the ceremonial resolution, I think that we had. So I come to a part and it's interesting that it's in the recipe. Well, I get to read this statement, and I have not read the statement at this particular point. But unfortunately, thank you, members, for your time and engagement tonight. We will now convene. We will next convene at our public meeting on January 22nd. Members of the public can visit SBOE.dc.gov to visit, to learn how to submit and present testimony at the upcoming public meeting. All public witnesses must submit a written copy of their testimony to our staff for the public record. The topic of our next panel this month is effective community school models. Members voted on this topic at the December working session. Seeing no further business before the state board, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, is that, that's just.
Motion by Jonathan Law. Did I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Coulter. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I didn't think so. The working session is adjourned at exactly 6:53.
I was wrong.